For some news or whatever our thoughts. Well, this guy Matthew Cratter, I think he's top tier, man, when it comes to knowing stuff about what's going on with Bitcoin. And because of his background in he's a former hedge fund manager. I think he used to I want to say he worked with Peter Thiel, I think he said, or one of those people, one of those big high people. He knows the game, and he broke down MSTR like no other. And basically, the MNAV that strategy is using is BS.
Wow, that's
And
huge.
He went in, man. I kind of want to watch it. I know it's long, but it's up to you guys. Whatever, doesn't matter to me.
Don't bother me.
I mean, we could pick and pull it apart.
Okay,
You know, that's cool. Because that's only gonna. That's what has that video. 25 minutes, you said?
Yeah, I'll put it on. I'll put it on a few second speed, like 115.
Yeah.
Quicker. Well, let's get a few people in here because I want to. I don't, you know.
I like what he's doing because I mean, at the end of the day, you know, it's always good to have. You always want to push back at everything, right? I even love it when people push on Bitcoin because it's like you need that. You need people to push back on anything and everything because it's always a stress test, right? Or you want to try to find. People always are trying to find holes in anything, you know. So, and I'll be honest with you, man. There's not a lot of stuff that Crater does that I think, respectfully so, that we don't really disagree with. I mean, there's some things here and there, but majority of the stuff he talks about, I think we're all pretty much on the same boat. You know,
informationally, I'm good with Crater. I just some of his videos, bro.
I know. We're gonna speed it up. We're gonna speed it up. Like I've had females around. They're like, and I play it, and they go, "Are we going to sleep or are we learning?" Like,
is this
he's
ASMR?
Yeah, he's my zen. He's my zen. But you know, he's a and I'm gonna make a video about this. I don't know if anybody's ever talked about this, but you know how I always say, and you always say, Bitcoin is political, and it is. But Bitcoin is political inside and out, right? We have, you know, outside U.S. politics or whatever, geopolitical stuff, but Bitcoin also has its own politics inside of the, you know, manosphere or whatever, the sphere inside of Bitcoin, whether it's we're going to do a soft fork of the BIP 110, whether people are going to use core or not.
Yeah, it's its own economy.
Yeah, it's its own economy. You know what I'm saying? And when you want to know something about it, I like to listen to people that are obsessed with the subject and study it and are very smart. And that's Matthew Crater. Matthew Crater knows his S. You know what I'm saying? So you know what? We're going to go ahead and watch that, guys. We'll stop it when some more comments come in. But I want to check this out together. I think it's going to be a very interesting video. So without further ado, let's check out the great Matthew Crater on how MSTR can go to zero.
This is Matthew Crater's Bitcoin University. Today I want to talk about how MSTR can go to zero. And first, a disclaimer, I've never owned MSTR, Stretch, or any other strategy securities, and I never will. So let's start with something that's boring, but it is important. So just stick with me for a moment. This is how capital structure works for a company. Some folks are senior, some folks are junior. And in a liquidation, senior folks get paid before junior folks. And if there's not enough stuff, in other words, enough assets to divide up, then those at the bottom starve. There's no soup for them. Think of it like a waterfall where the assets are sold for cash, and then the proceeds flow down the capital structure from top to bottom. So starting with senior secured debt and then senior unsecured debt down to junior debt, down to the various classes of preferred stock like Stretch and Stride and Strife and Strike and Stray or whatever it's called, and then ending up at the very, very bottom, those who have the last claim on assets in a liquidation after everyone else would be the common stock, which in this case is MSTR. So if Bitcoin crashed and strategy had to be divided up and fed to the Wall Street vultures, people at the top of that list would get paid first, and those at the bottom would get paid only if there was enough soup, in other words, enough assets to go around. Even among the preferred stocks, there's a separate waterfall. So if you own one of these preferreds, like Stretch, for example, you might want to research where you stand. You could ask ChatGPT or Grok who gets paid before you, what exactly the waterfall looks like in the preferred stocks. Because if you go and read the fine print, it can get quite complicated. So I haven't done that because basically I don't even care about these preferreds, but I think people should be aware of the risks. A lot of retail investors who own MSTR Stretch don't seem to understand these details. They don't realize that there are people ahead of them in the capital structure. If you hold MSTR and think that your position is somehow backed by that $62 billion worth of Bitcoin, that strategy holds, you are definitely wrong about this, because you as a common shareholder get paid after everyone else in that waterfall. So I want to put together some back of the envelope math, and this is all taken from Strategy's own website. And I used the value of the Bitcoin reserves on Friday when it closed. I used the total assumed diluted shares outstanding. So this looks at.
Now, keep in mind, Matthew Cratter, this is his business. He used to do this kind of stuff. And again, he's using their own numbers. All right. So keep that in mind.
All the convertible bonds, everything that could convert to the common, and takes into account dilution, 381 million shares. So I built a little spreadsheet here, which you can play around with. They have Strategy has 843,738 Bitcoin. I'm using the most recent price of Bitcoin, so just right around where it was trading yesterday when the market closed, and where it's still trading today, 73,520. So that values, I just multiplied those two things together to get about $62 billion worth of assets on Strategy's balance sheet. And then you have the convertible debt holders. They come first. They come ahead of the preferred stockholders. So that's about 6.7 billion. It was closer to 8 or so, but Saylor just recently retired about $1.5 billion worth of convertible bonds. Strangely, he did it with money that was raised, I believe, by selling the common stock, and was meant to be used to pay the Stretch dividend, but he used it to retire some convertible debt. Either way, we have the convertible debt people ahead of all the preferreds, and then we have all the preferred Strife and Stretch. Most importantly, here at $10.5 billion worth of that, going all the way down to Stride. And so if you net all of these other holders out, the value of that Bitcoin, that's $62 billion. Once all these people get paid in a liquidation, and again, you can assume that in a liquidation, there's going to be quite a bit of chaos. The price of Bitcoin will be lower, etc. But that takes you down to about $39-40 billion. And so then if you just divide by the number of shares outstanding, and again, I'm using all Saylor's numbers, you end up with the current fair value, or really the liquidation value. I wouldn't say the fair value, but the liquidation value, about $104 per share. Currently, or on Friday, MSTR closed at about $159 per share. Obviously, there's a premium here because this is not a dead concern. This is ongoing concern. In other words, this is a business that's not even close to being liquidated. But this is sort of the premium you get, and this premium collapses when people think that it's just going to be vultures dividing up the strategy body and dividing up these $62 billion worth. So what we can do is we can play around with this and see if at what point Strategy might get into some sort of stress. So what happens if Bitcoin goes down to $60,000 per coin? Then the fair value, or the liquidation value per share of MSTR, would be $74.50. What happens if we go down to 30,000? You can see because these preferred shares essentially count as leverage on the balance sheet, or they help to lever up the common. If we go down to 30,000, we can see how quickly things start to liquidate. We're down to $8 per share. And then the magic number, I already tried this before, is about $26,290. $26,290 per Bitcoin. At that point, you're basically at zero or slightly negative. And so all these other people get made whole ahead of you. About the value of the Bitcoin at $26,000 per coin is about 22 billion. And once you pay off all the preferred shareholders, as well as the convertible debt holders, and make them whole, there's nothing left over for MicroStrategy. So what this should make quite clear to everyone is that MSTR can go to zero long before Bitcoin goes to zero. Here's Bitcoin still at $26,000 per coin, and MSTR has completely been zeroed out. I think it's also important to note, as I said, at the back of the envelope math that I've just done in that spreadsheet.
Okay, let's stop right there. That is very interesting. Now, what are the chances we're going to go down to just over 26,000? Probably very low. That's the first time I've ever had anybody seen it like that broken down. What are you guys' thoughts on that part right there?
It's sound math. Of course, he's really good at that part. It's just not how markets work, though. Like, he'll borrow more money, buy more Bitcoin. He'll leverage more of the MSTR. He'll split the stock. He could just be a hype man and overinflate the MSTR price. It doesn't have to be worth. It's worth whatever they say it's worth, or whatever people buy it at. Just because it's not, the math doesn't add up to the 26.290. Doesn't matter. It could be over worth. A lot of factors not factored in, but yeah, his math sound.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think there is a lot of moving parts here. I don't think he'll ever let it get to that point. I mean, if it ever gets to that point where it's like, where he's having to start putting fires out, then yeah, he'll go to splits, or he'll figure out some ways to gain more capital or something like that, because he's really good at that. And I think more than what we know, he's built those channels up with people or institutions or wherever he's able to get that from. He's building those relationships up. And I don't think he's open in public with those. Obviously, I think he keeps those close to his chest. But my issue is this, okay? My issue is that I get the math. It's crazy. So what's the number? 26.2, basically 26.2. That's the oh shit moment, right? For me, it's just, I just don't understand. I mean, just own the underlying asset. Like, I don't understand with the whole, like, the strife and the strike and the stretch and the this and the that and the this. It sounds like a rap song. You know what I mean?
I own MSTR because it's the only thing I can do in my IRA. That is
okay. So that makes sense though. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for you to own every other part of it and everything. I just don't understand it.
Could you have done IBIT or?
I did IBIT.
No, I'm here.
Oh, you froze on my screen.
No, I wasn't froze. On my end, you froze.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I picked something, honestly.
Okay, say that again. Sorry.
Basically, I went with MSTR because I wanted more leverage on the Bitcoin. It's like a 2 to 3x leverage versus IBIT.
Okay. Sorry, Anthony. Go ahead. Continue.
No. I just like I've looked into this stuff in general, and it's just, you guys, I think you already know. I've already said it before. It's just not for me, but I just think it's just too many moving parts, and I think from a mental space for me, I just like to keep it just simple, cruise control, buying every hour on the hour type stuff. But that's because I don't have like 401k. I don't have all that stuff. I don't have any of that. I don't do all that. Everything just goes directly in. Everything is like, I'm literally like everything I have.
If I could take it and just take the cash, I would.
Yeah.
What's funny about that is Paul the GOAT. He was in a similar situation, I believe, as you, Trent. But he cashed his out. He paid the penalties. He cashed it out, and he paid some heavy penalties and taxes.
And I might do that if I ever, leave. I almost said the word. I almost said my job word. But if I leave my job, I might do that if I head overseas or something.
Yeah. And now, of course, when I say this, obviously price is relative, but he sold when it was about $8,000 Bitcoin.
Ooh.
Yeah. Now again, we're looking at 73,000. Like, wow, $8,000 to 73,000. Yeah, that's relatively small. But if we sold now, let's say, because I have a retirement portfolio too. I can cash it out when I'm 59 and a half. I decided not to do that because I'm a little older and I'm closer to it. He was in his 40s or 30s or 40s when he did it. You're young as well, Trent.
Yeah.
So he just said he just took the fees, took the penalties, and did his thing. And now, again, up front it hurt, but now
only
in the back,
10% plus taxes.
Yeah. If there's one thing I've learned about Matthew Crater is that he's always worried about something.